Lesson 44. God is the light in which I see. Today we are continuing the idea for yesterday, adding another dimension to it. You cannot see in darkness, and you cannot make light. You can make darkness and then think you see in it. But light reflects life and is therefore an aspect of creation. Creation and darkness cannot coexist, but light and life must go together, being but different aspects of creation. In order to see, you must recognize that light is within, not without. You do not see outside yourself, nor is the equipment for seeing outside you. An essential part of this equipment is the light that makes seeing possible. It is with you always, making vision possible in every circumstance. Today we are going to attempt to reach that light. For this purpose, we will use a form of exercise which has been suggested before and which we will utilize increasingly. It is a particularly difficult form for the undisciplined mind and represents a major goal of mind training. It requires precisely what the untrained mind lacks. Yet this training must be accomplished if you are to see. Have at least 3 practice periods today, each lasting 3 to 5 minutes. A longer time is highly recommended, but only if you find the time slipping by with little or no sense of strain. The form of practice we will use today is the most natural and easy one in the world for the trained mind, just as it seems to be the most unnatural and difficult for the untrained mind. Your mind is no longer wholly untrained. You are quite ready to learn the form of exercise we will use today, but you may find that you will encounter strong resistance. The reason is very simple. While you practice in this way, you leave behind everything that you now believe and all the thoughts that you have made up. Properly speaking, this is the release from hell. Yet perceived through the ego's eyes, it is loss of identity and a descent into hell. If you can stand aside from the ego by ever so little, you will have no difficulty in recognizing that its opposition and its fears are meaningless. You might find it helpful to remind yourself from time to time that to reach light is to escape from darkness, whatever you may believe to the contrary. God is the light in which you see. You are attempting to reach him. Begin the practice period by repeating today's idea with your eyes open and close them slowly, repeating the idea several times more. Then try to sink into your mind, letting go every kind of interference and intrusion by quietly sinking past them. Your mind cannot be stopped in this unless you choose to stop it. It is merely taking its natural course. Try to observe your passing thoughts without involvement and slip quietly by them. While no particular approach is advocated for this form of exercise, what is needful is a sense of the importance of what you are doing, its inestimable value to you, and an awareness that you are attempting something very holy. Salvation is your happiest accomplishment. It is also the only one that has any meaning, because it is the only one that has any real use to you at all. If resistance rises in any form, pause long enough to repeat today's idea, keeping your eyes closed unless you are aware of fear. In that case, you will probably find it more reassuring to open your eyes briefly. Try, however, to return to the exercises with eyes closed as soon as possible. If you are doing the exercises correctly, you should experience some sense of relaxation and even a feeling that you are approaching, if not actually entering into light. Try to think of light, formless and without limit, as you pass by the thoughts of this world. And do not forget that they cannot hold you to the world unless you give them the power to do so. Throughout the day, repeat the idea often, with eyes open or closed as seems better to you at the time. But do not forget, above all be determined not to forget today. God is the light in which I see, seeking the unseen light. All right, let's get into this. We're talking about light, but not the kind you switch on with a lamp. Not sunlight, not firelight, not even the glow of a candle in the dark. This is a different kind of light altogether. Jesus is saying something pretty radical here. You can't make light. You can make darkness, and then think you see in it. That's a line worth sitting with. Have you ever convinced yourself that something false was real? That's making darkness and thinking you see. How do we make darkness? Ever been so sure of something, only to find out later you were completely wrong? That's a perfect example of making darkness and thinking you see. You assume someone is ignoring you because they don't care. Later you find out they were just going through their own struggle. You tell yourself you're not good enough, and then your mind starts finding evidence to support it, as if that proves it's true. The Course is saying that this whole world, our fears, doubts and limitations, is the darkness we made. But here's the kicker. Light and darkness cannot coexist. If the light is real, then the darkness must be an illusion. What is this light? Then, it's not something you go out and find. It's something you recognize within yourself. The Course keeps hammering this point. You do not see outside yourself, nor is the equipment for seeing outside you. What equipment? He's not talking about eyes, cameras, or telescopes. He's talking about a way of perceiving that doesn't rely on the body. Imagine walking into a dark room where you think there's a monster in the corner. Your heart races. You see the shadow, and your mind fills in the details. But then someone turns on the light, and you realize it was just a coat hanging on a chair. The monster never existed. It wasn't real. But in the darkness, it felt real. That's how we live most of our lives, reacting to things we made up in the dark, never realizing we could just turn on the light. The undisciplined mind versus the trained mind. Jesus says this exercise is easy for the trained mind, but difficult for the undisciplined mind. Why? Think of meditation. If you've never done it, sitting quietly for 5 minutes feels like torture. Your mind jumps everywhere. What am I doing? This is pointless. I need coffee. But if you practice, it becomes effortless. The untrained mind lacks focus. It clings to distractions, gets lost in mental noise, and resists stillness. But the more you train it, the more natural this process becomes. Why do we resist this so much? The Course says that reaching this light means leaving behind everything we now believe. And to the ego, that's terrifying. It feels like dying. If you've ever gone through a major shift in belief, realizing your religion, politics, or worldview were wrong, you know how unsettling it is. There's a moment of panic. If this isn't true, then what is? The ego sees this as a loss of identity, but what if it's actually freedom? Imagine being trapped in a dark basement for years, convinced it's the only world there is. Then someone opens a door and you see daylight streaming in. At first, you resist. No, I belong here. This is my home. But once you step into the light, you'd never want to go back. That's what this practice is about, stepping into a reality beyond what we've made up in the dark. What does it mean to reach God? Not by effort, not by striving, just by removing the blocks to what was always there. Think of the sun. It's always shining, even on a cloudy day. But if you only focus on the clouds, you might convince yourself the sun is gone. The Course says we've been staring at the clouds, our fears, doubts, and illusions, so long that we forgot the sun was even there. Reaching God, then, isn't about climbing a ladder. It's about clearing away the illusions that make you think you're separate. Salvation is your happiest accomplishment, because it's the only thing that actually matters. That's a bold statement. But let's really sit with it. What is salvation? It's not about being saved from something. It's about waking up to what has always been true. It's the moment you stop searching, stop striving, stop believing you are separate from God. Salvation is recognizing that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. It's the end of fear, the end of guilt, the end of believing you are alone, unworthy, or lost. Why does this matter? Because everything else we chase, success, security, validation, is temporary. It shifts, it changes, it falls apart. The things we thought would make us whole end up feeling hollow. Salvation matters because it's the only thing that doesn't fade. It's the only thing that actually lasts. And here's the real question. What does it look like to accept salvation for yourself? It looks like a deep breath after carrying a weight you didn't even realize was there. It looks like the moment you stop fighting and just allow yourself to be. It's choosing love instead of fear, peace instead of attack, truth instead of illusion. It's the light we've been talking about, always there, always waiting, the only thing that was ever real. And when you finally step into it, you won't wonder if it matters. You'll know.